Married me a mama and decided to settle down. I got married, decided to settle down. Now my clothes are all ragged and my feet are on the ground. I got the alimony blues. Now she got alimony when she got her divorce. She got alimony when she got her divorce. Now I'm still working for her, but now my boss is the police force. Man, that ain't right. I got that alimony blues. Yeah, now all you rounders just take this fool's advice. All you rounders take this fool's advice. Don't ever let a little mama ever talk you into being your wife. Whoa, no. You'll have them alimony blues. The doggone women, man, they are just all alike. Doggone women, they are all alike. They take your alimony money, put clothes on another man's back. Oh, that's gotta hurt. You'll get them alimony blues. You heard my story and I guess you'll be running along. Heard my story and I guess you'll be running along. Yeah, you hear these lyrics here, this Jimmie Davis song. And don't think about getting married, man, that ain't right. You'll have them alimony blues. Got them blues. There's a really great quote, and I like this one. If you don't like what you're hearing about Jimmie Davis, you don't know Jimmie Davis. And I got that quote from one of his family members because I got some great information from family and friends and people that truly knew and loved the governor. But I was exploring his musical history, and so I was diving into the music. So this motivated and self-made man ended up attending Louisiana College, where he got a bachelor's degree, and went to LSU and got a master's degree at the time, which was very difficult. And he ended up as a public school teacher in Shreveport for a while. And after that, he ran for office, and he had greater aspirations. And one of the things about Jimmie Davis that a lot of people miss is the fact that he was a huge star in his time. He had hundreds and hundreds of recordings, and he was the #2 country artist in America. Only Gene Autry was a bigger star. He always considered himself a singer first, and he was a publisher and musician, even in the governor's mansion. He never stopped. And he was associated with all of the biggest stars of his time. One of the things that I found in my research of Jimmie Davis that was so interesting was the fact that he covered so many out-of-the-box musical styles. I was expecting straight gospel, straight country, but I heard many other things. I heard blues, straight blues, Delta blues, and it was pretty surprising for me. Standard country, which I expected, gospel, but also things like Tin Pan Alley. I mean, really interesting kind of pieces of music. and some of it covered some really interesting subject matter as well. This is one about, I can relate to this. I'm a man who's getting older, and my wife still just gets younger every day. And here we go with Mama's Getting Hot. Mama's getting young, Pop's getting old. Mama's getting hot and Pop's getting cold. Mama's getting young and Pop's getting older each day. Mama's like this and Pop's like that. Mama's getting thin and Pop's hog fat. Mama's getting young and Pop's getting older each day. Mama with her boyish bob just looks so cute and sweet. Papa with his long red beard kind of looks like shredded wheat. Mama's complexion looks like a rose. Papa's too, 'cause it's going to his nose. Mama's getting young and Pop's getting older each day. Young, Pop's getting old. Mama's getting hot and Pop's getting cold. Mama's getting young and Pop's getting older each day. Now Mama's at the nightclub shaking her hips, and Papa shakes too 'cause he's blue around the lips. Mama's getting young, Pop's getting older each day. Mama in her pink pajamas, man, there ain't no flaws. Mama with a long red beard kind of looks like Santa Claus. Mama's getting young, Pop's getting old. Mama's getting hot and Pop's getting cold. Mama's getting young and Pop's getting older each day. Mama's getting young and Pop's getting older each day. Mama's getting young and Pop's getting older each day. The next song I'm going to do for you is a really great Jimmie Davis country song called Nobody's Darling But Mine. It was a huge hit for him, and it's also the title track of a 4 CD collection of his early work. I encourage you to look it up. Nobody's Darling But Mine. Come sit by my side, little darling. Come lay your cool head on my brow. Promise me that you will never be nobody's darling but mine. Nobody's darling but my love. Be honest, be faithful, be kind. Promise me that you will never be nobody's darling but mine. You're sweet as the flowers of springtime, as pure as the dew on the rose. I'd rather be somebody's darling than a poor girl that nobody knows. My mother is dead and in heaven. Father has gone down below. Sister has gone to meet mother. But where I go, nobody knows. Goodbye, goodbye, little darling. I'm leaving this cold world behind. Promise me that you will never be nobody's darling but mine. Nobody's darling but my love. Be honest, Be faithful, be kind. Promise me that you would never be nobody's darling but mine. One of the things I discovered in my research on Jimmie Davis was the fact that he had so many unique bands, studio musicians. For instance, he recorded in Memphis. And this was a surprise to me. I listened to the music and I was expecting hillbilly music. And what I heard instead was straight blues. I mean, the instruments were not right. It was not dobros. It was bottleneck guitar from the Delta on these blues tunes that Jimmie Davis was recording. So I did the research and found out that part of the reason is that he was recording in Memphis with African-American musicians instead of recording in Nashville with hillbilly musicians. So I did some research and I found this particular song, and this is one of the things about groundbreaking subject matter that I'd like to discuss about Jimmie Davis. This is a story about race. This is about if you are a light-skinned black person in Louisiana, in the South, your life is easier than if you're very dark. This is a very old song, and like I said, I just found the subject matter kind of challenging, and I found the piece of music to be really interesting. This is called Get On Board, Ain't Susan? Yellow gal rides in a Cadillac and brown skin does the same. Black girl rides in a wagon, Lord, but she's right along just the same. Get on board, ain't Susan? Sleeps in a folding bed and brown skin does the same. Black girl sleeps on a pallet, Lord, but she's cruising along just the same. Yellow gal wears those high heel shoes and brown skin does the same. Black girl walks along barefoot, but she's walking along just the same. Get on board, ain't Susan? Yeah, all right. Yellow gal wears those ruffled clothes and brown skin does the same. Black girl wears old red flannel, but she's wearing along just the same. Get on board, ain't Susan? Yeah, all right. Mm-hmm. 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 Now, as part of my research, a story that I heard that really kind of ties into this idea about the groundbreaking subject matter of some of the songs that Jimmie Davis recorded is a story of a very personal nature. So this family member told me that he was living in Baton Rouge, and the governor called him and said, "Hey, please come to the governor's mansion tonight." This is, his nephew. "And come have dinner with me at the governor's mansion." So this 16-year-old kid goes like, "Yeah, okay, fine, whatever." So he pops over and he goes to the governor's mansion. He goes, "Well, hey, we're kind of getting hungry here. What's up?" And he goes, "Well, we're waiting on somebody." So they waited and waited for a while. There's a knock at the door. Maid goes and answers the door. A valet or a driver comes in, talks for a minute, goes back out to the car. And when he comes in and the governor goes to the door, Ray Charles walks through the door of the governor's mansion in approximately 1963 at night, which is the time that Ray Charles would probably show up at the governor's mansion. Well, one of the things that complicated this was the fact that Ray had a heroin conviction in Canada. So he's coming into the governor's mansion. It's in the middle of civil rights work. He's got a criminal record, And here he comes prancing right into the governor's mansion, bringing his Ray Charles self up in there. And so they sit down and they have dinner. And what was told me was that they talked about music, and they talked about songs and people they knew in the business, and they joked and they laughed, and they had a really great supper, and it was just this really kind of fun evening. And it tells me something about the character of the man. I mean, we know because he grew up sharecropping that he had an integrated neighborhood close by. Sharecropper shacks are lined up. And also, he played with African-American musicians. That was a choice he made. And when he chose his friends, he chose them based on friendship and ignored many of the conventions of the time. So this story about Ray Charles coming into the governor's mansion in the evening for a private dinner when it would have been horribly controversial tells me something else about the character of the man. It's one of the best things that I heard doing my research was the story about Ray Charles going into the governor's mansion. One of the things about Jimmie Davis that I discovered in my research was that he had this huge gospel career, but deep down, everyone that knew him said he always considered himself a gospel singer first. And that at some point, he stopped doing the secular music and he transitioned into doing gospel only. But there was a transition period. And so now we're going to do one about it. This is called She's a Hum-Dum-Dinger About Going to a Little Country Church. Talk about your girls, you ought to see mine. She ain't good looking, but she dressed so fine. She's long and tall, a handsome queen. And she's got ways like a mowing machine. She's a hum-dum-dinger from Dingersville. Oh, watch her strut her stuff. Took her to church in my hometown. The preacher got hot and wrote his Bible down. I've been preaching a long, long time, thinking you got yours and I'm gonna get mine. She's a hum-dum-dinger from Dingersville. Oh, watch her strut her stuff. Old brother Deacon by the old fireplace ran that sister one awful race. Oh, but took her way uptown. She got warm and turned her damper down. She's a hum-dum-dinger from Dingersville. Oh, watch her strut her stuff. She crossed her eyes and reared right back, knocked at the knees and was balling the jack. Steady, James, steady, don't you bother me. I'll whip you down with a single tree. She's a hum-dum-dinger from Dingersville. Oh, watch her strut her stuff. Church is over, singing is done. Not much preaching, but lots of fun. And she's a hum-dum-dinger from Dingersville. Oh, watch her strut her stuff. I said, oh, watch her strut her stuff. I said, oh, watch her strut her stuff. Dingersville. And this next song is one of those themes that I think lives in pop music and gospel music and every other kind of music you can really imagine. And this was part of Governor Jimmie Davis's his transition to gospel music from secular music. And this one is called "There's Evil in Ye Children." There's evil in ye children, gather round. There's evil in ye children, gather round. You go out and drink that gin, you're so easy to give in, Lord. There's evil in ye children, gather round. There's evil in ye children, gather foolish notions, Lord. There's evil in ye children, gather round. There's evil in ye children, gather round. There's evil in ye children, gather round. Go out not 9:30, not a good thing on your mind, Lord. There's evil in ye children, gather round. There's evil in ye children, gather round. There's evil in ye children, gather round. When you watch your sins all brown, you can go see Parson Brown, Lord. There's evil in ye children, gather round. Evil in ye children, gather round. There's evil in ye children, gather round. Now when you feel love's temptation, come to me, you'll find salvation. 'Cause there's evil in ye children, gather round. Governor Jimmie Davis was a huge gospel publisher. Okay, I found that out. I discovered it partly by looking through all the documents and the resources that were made available to me through his family members, and I'm so grateful for their help in doing my research on this project. So he was a huge gospel music publisher, constantly buying and selling songs, constantly doing business deals, and he had relationships with the most prominent gospel writers of his time. Like I found documents where he was in correspondence with Dottie Rambo, who was just selling just huge amounts of music at the time. So he was really deeply involved in gospel music and in the industry that he was part of. One of the interesting things I found out about him because of his spiritual life was that people really trusted the governor, and people wanted to talk to him. And one of the people that really wanted to talk to him was one of the presidents of the United States. A family member shared this story with me that it was in the 40s, World War II was coming to an end, and the governor got a phone call. That phone call was from President Truman. And they knew each other from conventions and other things because the governor was a Democrat and they were both in the same political party. She said, look, Jimmy, I really need your help with something. I've got to do something that might have some bad political fallout, but I need you to cover for me. And he goes, well, I trust you, President, and I know that whatever you're going to be doing is what we have to do that's best for the country, even though you can't tell me for security reasons. He goes, yes, that's correct. Well, thank you so much, and you can count on my support. All right. And the next day, they dropped the first nuclear bomb. So one of the last phone calls that President Truman made was to Governor Jimmie Davis. And I think that tells us something about his character and about his importance to the world that he lived in, that he was a very influential person. So now I'm going to do a couple of the gospel songs that he performed frequently, and they're really important to me growing up as a gospel singer, as I did. And I hope that you enjoy them, and I hope they move you spiritually. Living below in this old sinful world, hardly a comfort can afford, striving alone to face temptation's call. Where could I go but to the Lord? Where could I go? Where could I go? Seeking a refuge for my soul, needing a friend to help me in the end. Where could I go but to the Lord? Neighbors are kind, I love them, everyone. We get along in sweet accord. But when I pass the chilling hand of death, where could I go but to the Lord? Where could I go, seeking a refuge for my soul, needing a friend to help me in the end. Where could I go but to the Lord? Life here is grand with friends I love so well. Comfort I get from God's own word. But when I need manna from above, where could I go but to the Lord? Where could I go? Where could I go? Seeking a refuge for my soul, needing a friend to help me in the end. Where could I go but to the Lord? Where could I go but to the Lord? One of the things I discovered when I was doing my work on this project was that at one point, Governor Davis, when he was a child, they were so poor, so destitute, that one of his siblings died, a young girl, and he had to go and scrounge through the neighborhood to find enough scrap lumber to put a coffin together for his sister. So in our period of time, we have hardships, we have struggles, but we really don't see the world the same way that these people did. Death was very present to them. It was always there. People did not live long. Cemeteries are full of graves of toddlers, people in their 20s. So the music, this gospel music that came from these small little churches, was the glue that held these communities together. Singing conventions, small churches, people riding to these churches in their wagons for miles to get there for these events. It held the culture and the communities together. And this is one of the most famous songs of that genre, and I hope you enjoy Will the Circle Be Unbroken? I was standing by my window on a cold and cloudy day when I saw that hearse come rolling for to take my dear mother away. Will that circle be unbroken by and by, Lord, by and by? There's a better well, I told that undertaker, please drive slow, 'cause that precious body you carry, Lord, I hate to see her go. Will that circle be unbroken by and by, Lord, by and by? There's a better I followed close behind her, tried to hold up and be brave, but I could not hide my sorrow when they laid her in her grave. Will that circle be unbroken by and by, Lord, by and by? There's a better sky. went back home, Lord. Oh, so lonesome since my mother, she was gone. All my brothers, sisters crying, sat home there all alone. Will that circle be unbroken by and by, Lord, by and by? There's a better home awaiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky. In the sky, Lord, in the sky. And one of the greatest gospel songs that Jimmie Davis did was this absolutely fabulous song. And I was asked to sing some music at a funeral recently for a family member, and I chose this one because it is about someone who remembers their childhood and all those precious memories and would like to return to those things, but we can't. But we remember them through song. And this is called Come Home, It's Supper Time. Many years ago, in days of childhood, I used to play till evening shadows come, winding down that old familiar pathway. I'd hear my mother call at set of sun. Come home, it's supper time. The shadows lengthen fast. Come home, it's supper time. We're going home at last. Some of my fondest memories of childhood are woven around supper time. When my mother used to call from the back steps of the old home place, "Come on home, son, it's supper time." I'd love to hear that one more time, but you know, time is woven in realization that the greatest gift of all is when we hear that call from the portals of glory. Come home, it's supper time. Come home, it's supper time. The shadows lengthen fast. Come home, it's supper time. We're going home at last. Come home, it's supper time. The shadows lengthen fast. Come home, it's supper time. We're going home at last. We're going home at last. One of the most interesting things that I found in my research was the fact that Jimmie Davis worked with so many fabulous musicians. And he was such a team player. He had all these great musicians around him. He was the governor. He was a member of the Screen Actors Guild. At that point, he was a wealthy, very successful musician. He could work with anybody he wanted to. And he worked with fabulous musicians, and his recordings were just stellar. They were really great. Now we're moving on to an absolute timeless classic in the history of pop music. This is one of the most frequently sung songs in the English language, right up there with Happy Birthday. Right? It's a really fabulous song. It was recorded for years and years. And many artists recorded this. Gene Autry, Rosie Clooney, the Mills Brothers, and there's even a rock and roll version done by Dwayne Eddy of this timeless classic, You Are My Sunshine. And the funny thing about this is that many, many people claim to have written You Are My Sunshine. There are many folks that claim that they wrote it. And I found documents showing where the governor responded to some of these claims. And one of them, he wrote back, someone must have had a dream that they were there when we wrote You Are My Sunshine. And one of the quotes also was, I just get a little tired of these people from these places making these claims about having been someplace when I know they weren't there. I mean, he was really just got fed up with it over the entire course of his life. But when you're talking about one of the songs generating the most royalties on the planet, people wanted a piece of the action. He ended up being the sole owner of that song. He had some songwriting partners. Apparently, he bought them out. And as you can see right here with this document, he absolutely owns the right of You Are My Sunshine. So all that matters is what's on the documentation. That's what's truly important. So we're going to do this right now. And everybody, if you can, wherever you are, sing along with me on You Are My Sunshine. The other night, dear, as I lay sleeping, I dreamed I held you in my arms. When I awoke, dear, I was mistaken. So I hung my head and I cried. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. You never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away. I'll always love you and make you happy. If you would only say the same. But if you leave me for another, you'll regret it all someday. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. You never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away. Please don't take my sunshine away. At the end of a man's life, he reflects on the things that are very important to him. And on the tombstone of Jimmie Davis, you'll see three really prominent things. One, he wrote You Are My Sunshine. It's on his tombstone. The other thing, the names of his parents. And another, his 2 terms as governor. Those are things that were important to him. They were part of his legacy, and they kind of made the mark of the man. So I want you to know this man. We know the governor. We know the mature Jimmie Davis. And now we've kind of met the younger Jimmie Davis by listening to his earlier music, and we can kind of see the course of his life and see the kind of man and the kind of music that he made. I really became a fan of Jimmie Davis by doing this research. And I hope that you get to know this man as well as I did. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your library for supporting this effort, and I hope to see you again. Good day.